Now, realistically, I'm not really too sure what is in the background for this video. Honestly, it's probably just, some Wizards highlights, maybe some rookie highlights, maybe something along those lines. But honestly, this is a variety channel. And I feel like it'd be wrong for me to, just stay solely on the Hoyoverse stuff, the Kuro game stuff. And I decided that I want to dive a little bit deeper into basketball this season. So if you didn't already know, I am what you would call a delusional Wizards fan. And basically what I mean by me being a delusional Wizards fan is I have a lot more, not expectations, but a lot more of a feeling that we could be decent or should be decent than I think I should reasonably have when it comes to the Wizards teams. Like last year, I thought we could win a few games or be solid, but no, that was quite literally one of the worst seasons, not even quite literally. That was the worst season I've ever seen throughout my entire span of being a Wizards fan. Going 15-67, it's kind of unacceptable, especially considering that our roster last year was bad, but it's like realistically it could have been so much worse. But as y'all can obviously see from the title, today this video is going to be just solely focused on the fact that at least me personally, I feel like the Washington Wizards, and I've seen similar sentiments, that the Washington Wizards, they low-key, and when I say low-key, I mean like high-key, but they killed this year's NBA draft. Like, absolutely killed this year's NBA draft. And, like, when you really, really look at it, it's hard to even be upset with this team. Because I've been watching the Wizards for years blow picks like Johnny Davis. We at first thought Denny was going to be a blown pick because when we had Scott Brooks currently coaching, Scott Brooks had Denny sitting in the corner as if Denny was supposed to just be a type of guy that just sits in the corner and essentially does nothing. Like, Denny had an amazing breakout season last year. I love Denny. Honestly, I wish we could have still kept him on the team. It is what it is. We've had draft picks like Kyle Kuzma. Not Kyle Kuzma, I'm stupid. Like freaking Kelly Oubre. How did I get those two names mixed up? Like Kelly Oubre, who wasn't really, supposed to or expected to be too good, yet Kelly Oubre has carved out a solid, and I mean like a very solid career in the NBA. Yet, you know who kind of messed it all up? The Wizards, because we somehow, and I repeat, somehow ended up in a situation where a player like that's not even on our team. But let's just get into the actual players though. So the Washington Wizards this year, we drafted Alexander Sarr, or Alex Sarr, who probably is the best player in the draft class this year. And I was astounded to see that we actually managed to get our big man who could either potentially play at the 4, which he seems to prefer to want to actually play at, or which he'll most likely be moved down to the 5 at some point. But 7-foot guy, he has amazing movement, somewhat of a 3-ball. It's nothing that's amazingly consistent. He has, I'll say, relatively good size. He almost has like that well-known, I'm a big lengthy guy, but it's my first time coming into the league, and quite obviously I'm young. If I'm not mistaken, he's a 19-year-old, played in I'm already forgetting where bro played. Bro was playing in France, but I think that we potentially have our cornerstone, or like our centerpiece type of guy. Now, the one thing that's always had me so like at a loss, or even confused, might I say, when it came to my Washington Wizards, is compared to some of the other teams, right? And I'm talking about like even some teams that have been down in the mud as far as rebuilds are concerned. It's like the Wizards have just never had that guy. Like, the John Wall Bradley Beal teams were so fun to watch. They were so fun to watch. And even in the times of watching those teams, it's like they just always seem to lack what was needed to be able to get over the hump. Honestly, those teams made me so sad because it's like they never really made any moves. They never really did anything to try to help those two guys out. Pisses me off to this day. But then we had a guy. But you move on past the John Wall years, right? And despite the fact that the Wizards were in we should rebuild purgatory, we at least had a Bradley Beal, but that I don't think that's a player that you want to necessarily build a franchise around. And currently, in the current state of the NBA, there's a lot of teams that I would say are in a rebuilding state, right? You think of the Pistons. Pistons are in a rebuilding state. Despite that, that team being loaded with talent. I don't understand what's going on there. But they're in a rebuilding state. Cade Cunningham is there. You know Cade Cunningham is their guy. Like, straight up, we know Cade Cunningham is their guy. The Hornets, in a rebuilding state, they're making a lot of headway over there as well. But they have LaMelo. You know LaMelo's their guy. Shoot, we could even talk about Brandon Miller. They have Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller could be their guy. You go to the Toronto Raptors, who have officially kicked off their rebuild. They have a Scotty Barnes. They just paid their guy big money this year. They have their guy. You have other teams like the Spurs. Ultimate rebuild. They have a Wemby. We all know they have their guy. Or even, I feel like the only real question mark with some of the rebuilding teams is like the Blazers, you could say, and then kind of like the Jazz, low-key. Because with the Blazers, it's like, we don't really know if Scoot's your guy yet or not. But Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot, I think, is a future backcourt for real. And then in the Jazz, they just got a lot of picks, bruh. They're not in a bad spot. So with the Wizards this year drafting Alex Sarr, I think the Wizards might have actually finally found their guy to really push us forward to being a really good basketball team again. Now, when you move on from Alex Sarr, who I think is going to end up being the best person to come out the 2024 draft, and I'm going to talk it into existence. I'm praying that either he or this next person that I mentioned wins Rookie of the Year going into next season, because I have high expectations for them. He has nothing but a green light, and I think whether he plays alongside Kuz or has to play without Kyle Kuzma as a whole, I think he should be fine. But the next player that I'm going to talk about is Bub Carrington, Carlton Carrington, Bubba, as I'm going to call him. But it's like, that is a player that a lot of people mocked the Wizards to take Carlton Carrington. Whether that be taking him around the 26th pick, which a lot of people were assuming. No, the Wizards made a trade, which was the Deni Avdija trade, which in response to that, we ended up getting Malcolm Brogdon back, pick 14, and then a 2029 pick, if I'm not mistaken. I also believe there was a second that was involved in that, but yeah, I'm not really paying too much mind to the second. But as far as Bub Carrington, Carlton Carrington, whatever it be, from the things that I've seen, he didn't really play much point guard at all up until his freshman year at Pittsburgh, which is a little concerning to me in my eyes, because I understand players move around, players shift and stuff like that. And from what I've been told, what I've seen is he didn't have a bad year at all as a point guard there, but it's kind of a big risk type of draft pick at 14, because considering there was so many other people that were on the board, I understand the Wizards' vision, obviously, because we need youth, we need potential, we need those guys that we don't really know what they can be. And I feel like Bubba is probably one of the best visions that you could get, and I don't know what they can be, but we have specific things with this player that we know we're getting. So like in Carlton Carrington's case, you're getting a point guard that is big size, 6'4" type stuff, which is, I guess you could say, more or less the modern point guard frame nowadays, or the ideal point guard frame. No shots to any of the other point guards that are smaller or even taller than that, but it's the ideal point guard type of frame. You're getting a point guard that can create shots off of the dribble, is much better at creating his own shot than he is at the, catch and shoot type of shots, which is, I think it's promising, because if you have a player that can already create his own shot, and you take that player and put him under the right type of leadership, in which him creating his own shot evolves into, one, that skill still existing of him being able to create his own shot, and then two, it then transcends to him being able to create his own shot while also being able to get everybody else their own shot as well, just off the fact that him moving around the court with the ball in his hands is just creating that much space. Then I think that there's some type of potential there. Not to mention that Carlton Carrington is also a very solid defender. I'm not sure if I would go along the lengths of saying he's a plus defender or not, but he is a very solid defender. So I think that realistically, with the Carlton Carrington, the Bubba Carrington, I think with this pick, the Wizards low-key kind of banged. Now, I don't want to jump the gun or anything like that, but I think he could have kind of banged. And depending on his ability to be able to shoot the ball, or how well he is as a scorer once he gets in the NBA, because man's averaged 14, bro. 14 in college, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. But if he's able to score the way that I'm hoping he's able to score, there's very solid potential that he could be one of those later lottery picks that we're talking about in a few years and saying, oh my God, how did the Wizards get Bubba at 14? How? Like, I think there's a potential there, but I'm not too sure. And then last but not least, Kyshawn George, wing out of Miami. But from the things that I've heard, from the stuff that I've looked up, Kyshawn George is more of a, how would you say it, a prototypical 3-and-D type of wing player, because realistically, I don't know if the ball handling skill is there, but from the things I've seen, from all of the stuff I've heard from other outlets speaking on how good the Wizards draft class was, he is an amazing 3-and-D wing. And with moving Deni Avdija, I think being able to bring in a guy that can fill in that spot, not the playmaking aspect, but the shot and the defending, is something that we necessarily need. Like, we quite literally need in such an early stage of a rebuild. And I think between those 3 players, man, we absolutely banged with Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, and Kyshawn George. Now, as far as like the rotations, assuming we don't really do anything big come free agency, because I'm pretty sure they're gonna do something. Do I know what it's gonna be? No, not at all. But let's be honest, we know that the Wizards will probably do something. It'll probably be something small. But like, the lineups that at least I was envisioning in my head, because I want to say Kyle Kuzma's gonna get moved this offseason, but I don't really know. So I'm just trying to currently envision the Wizards with Kuz playing. So I'm thinking it's gonna be something like, to start the season, it'll probably be like a Malcolm Brogdon at the 1, Jordan Poole at the 2, and then you'll have Bilal Coulibaly maybe at the 3, or not even maybe, Bilal Coulibaly at the 3, and then you have Kyle Kuzma at the 4, and then Alex Sarr at the 5. Like, realistically, I don't hate that rotation at all. Like, Malcolm Brogdon in the trade, albeit I'm pretty sure they're probably going to move him. He's a really good point guard for Bub to learn from. Am I tripping to think that? Like, realistically, am I tripping thinking that Bubba Carrington is in a good situation, learning behind Malcolm Brogdon, a prior rookie of the year, a prior really good point guard? Like, am I out of my mind for that? I don't expect Jordan Poole to play even relatively as bad as he did at the start of last season. Like, the second end of the season was really, really good for him, but I don't expect him to have as off of a year as he did last year. I saw that we also did sign Richaun Holmes to a 2-year, $25 million deal, which I don't understand, but I mean, we need big men, so I mean, there's that. But outside of that, yeah, I don't really know what we have with a lot of the other players on this roster. Like, I've been seeing a lot about how people want Tyus Jones to come back, which I wouldn't hate, but at the same time, I feel like if you bring Tyus Jones back, then the conversation becomes, so what exactly are we doing with, you know, these not Bilal minutes, but these Bub Carrington minutes? Because I feel like in our current situation, we have no reason to not play our youth. Like, no reason at all. Corey Kispert's probably going to be second man up off the bench based off of Bilal's playtime, assuming Bilal elevates his game, because Bilal Coulibaly was an amazing, and I mean an amazing, addition by the Wizards last year. I had no expectations for the guy at all, and he was an amazing pickup. Not to mention the low-key sneaky pickup that I'm surprisingly liking, because in some of the games that he did get to play, there was flashes. But Tristan Vukcevic had flashes last season where you thought for maybe just a minute, this guy is kind of good. And if Tristan Vukcevic turns out to be a solid, like a genuinely solid center, and we can end up running a lineup of Alex Sarr and Tristan Vukcevic, and Vukcevic is actually really good, there's some potential with this Wizards young core, man. Like, between the young core of Bubba Carrington, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, freaking Kyshawn George, and then Tristan Vukcevic, like, Am I being too delusional to say that there's a lot of potential in that young core? Like, realistically, am I being too delusional to say that there's a lot of potential there? And let's be real, if we really want to go into the young core conversation, I mean, how young is young? Because Jordan Poole and Corey Kispert are both only 25 as of the recording of this video. I mean, am I tripping? I don't know if I'm tripping or not, bro. I don't know if I'm tripping, but I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna try my hardest to follow the Wizards in a more in-depth way than I have for the past few years that I've been watching basketball. I think if this video does pretty well, we're gonna potentially make another channel for this, but if y'all want me to keep it here, then I'll keep it here. No, I'm not the greatest of basketball minds. I can only go off of what I've seen and what I'm understanding, and I'm gonna do a lot more deep diving research on some of these guys, man. And I'm gonna catch you boys for Summer League 100%, because I'm gonna be recapping or trying to do some small recaps over, you know, these Wizards games. First Wizards game in Summer League, man, we get to see the Alexander Sarr, 𝙨𝙬𝙬𝙧𝙚 matchup. You know how good it feels that I can say that I'm a Wizards fan, and in Summer League this year, we have that guy that everyone wants to see? Hey man, your boy 𝙈𝙬𝙢𝙢𝙚. I hope y'all enjoyed. This is a new experience, without a doubt. Well, yeah, everything that I said earlier, bro, might have just went completely out the window. Now, I'm recording this part after I already recorded the segment that you guys just watched. But with today being the start of free agency, the Wizards just went out and signed Jonas Valanciunas to a 3-year, $30 million deal. Of all the things that I thought that we could potentially do, I did not think that our mid-level exception was going to be going to signing a veteran center that is somewhat serviceable. And I'm not gonna lie to you, this could obviously once again be, you know, some delusional Wizards fan type of thought process. I don't think this is a championship team, but with the accusations that we made, I think the Wizards could legitimately try to contend to be a play-in team at the very least next season. Now, obviously, I know there's going to be the people that are going to say, you know, it's the Cooper Flag year, tank anyway. I think this move is 100% the Wizards trying to buy in and letting Alexander Sarr or Alex Sarr play the preferred role or preferred position that he has stated. He has clearly came out and said he wants to play the 4, and I think this is the Wizards' way of trying to honor that, and I respect that. You have a guy that you're coming in that's potentially going to be the guy for your franchise, so why not try to respect the things that he has already stated? So, I mean, what are we looking at? Potential lineups? We could see, I mean, realistically, assuming they keep Kuz, Jordan Poole, Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, Kyle Kuzma, and then you have Alex Sarr and then Jonas Valanciunas at the 5? I mean, I don't want to say that team is like phenomenal or anything like that, but I feel like if it all comes together well, that could 100% be a play-in team. And playoffs is a really far standard. Or you could even have like a Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Poole, or Bilal Coulibaly at the 2 type thing, and then the same wing situation with Kyle Kuzma, Alex Sarr, Jonas Valanciunas. Hey, Big Val, welcome to Washington, man. I'm trying to find a way to buy into it, but I still at the same time don't really know how I feel about it. I don't know, man. We'll see once the season starts.